Hi guys, my name is Tracey and this is Lydia from KBC Bank, and I'm here to guide you through your first KBC WellGood yoga series. Today we're going to be looking at 5 of your most basic yoga poses, the poses that you'll come across time and time again in typical yoga classes. We're going to break them down and look at some techniques and tools that you can use for each and every pose. So Lydia firstly is going to come into downward facing dog. So in order to come into this pose, we're going to come down onto our hands and knees, so we're going to get a tabletop position. So Lydia's knees are pretty much just behind her hips, slightly behind her hips. Her hands are beneath her shoulders. So she's got a good posture here. She's got good lines. Her hands, you can move them slightly further in towards each other. So they're just shoulder distance apart. Now what I see a lot in downward facing dog is people have a tendency to lift the first knuckle and their first finger up off the ground. So Lydia here has a strong practice already, so she knows to glue this knuckle down into the ground. And also what you want to look for with your arms before you even lift up is that there's a rotation towards the armpits with the triceps. So that means that your elbow points, the crease of your elbows are facing forward. So they look really good. And then simply we're just going to tuck our toes underneath and then lift the hips all the way up towards the sky. So really nice. So as I said, Lydia's got a good practice already, so her downward facing dog looks pretty good as it is. Now, you can see here as Lydia is in this pose that you've got gorgeous length from the crown of the head all the way up to the tailbone. So the whole spine is stretched and lengthened. And that's what you want in your downward facing dog pose. Sometimes if the hamstrings are a little bit tight, we can see the upper back rounding. So even though she's got a beautiful down dog and she's got gorgeous hamstrings already, I'm going to get Lydia just to soften the knees here slightly. And you can see here that she's got more extension through the spine. Her tailbone can lift further up, and she's got a little soft bend in her knees. Sometimes we think that having the heels down on the ground is essential, but it's not essential. What we really want to look at and practice in this pose is the lengthening of the spine. So a beautiful pose to open the chest, lifting the hips high to the sky. Again, the first knuckle is glued down to the ground, the hips are lifting up, and the backs of the legs are lengthening. So the next pose we're going to move into is plank pose. So from here, Lydia can simply just shift her weight forward so that the shoulders are over the wrists. And as you can see again, she's got a beautiful line here. So from the crown of the head right down to the back of the heels, so from the front of the mat to the back, she's got this really nice straight line of energy. So a lot of the times, what we see here, I'm just going to get you to come into a bit of a plank no-no. Yes, exactly, she knew where I was going. The hips are dropped. So when the hips are dropped, you've got this crunching in the low back and it causes instability in the pose. You can see there's like a leaking of energy here through the pose. So what we want to do is firm the outer hips towards each other and then lift the hips up so that you've got this one line of energy, shoulders, hips, knees, heels. And again, the crown is lengthening forward and the heels are reaching back. A really strengthening pose. So I'm not going to keep her here for too long because it is difficult. And the next pose we're going to come down to is COBRA pose. So if you just want to lower your knees down and come all the way down onto the belly. Really nice. So first thing we're going to look at in COBRA is the feet. A lot of the time we just kind of lift ourselves up straight away, but we want to make sure that we have the foundation of the pose and we know what's going on with the pose. So I'm going to get Lydia to press down not only through her big toe, but also through her little toe as well. So really pressing down into all of the toenails, pressing it down into the earth. Her hands are pretty much where they need to be, directly underneath the shoulders, and the elbows are wrapping back towards the ribs. So there's a tucking in of the arms. And again, you can see that there's a nice length here through her spine. So you're looking at lengthening. Now, pressing the hands down, drawing the elbows in and then beginning to lift the chest up slightly. You can keep the gaze straight forward. So a lot of the time we see people cranking their heads straight up towards the sky, and it causes a crunch in the neck here at the top of the spine. So all of the time when she's pressing her hands down, she's drawing the hands back, lifting her chest forward, and I'm just going to step on her toes here to give her a little bit more stability through the legs. So the legs are really working here as well. There's action and energy through the legs. And if Lydia wants to, she can just begin to lift the hands up off the ground. So it's a really strengthening pose for your spine, and you're lengthening through the front of the body and hopefully breathing as well. Brilliant. So you can come all the way back down again. Gorgeous. So that's a low cobra. If you wanted to go up a little higher, you could, in fact, press down through the hands if you want to come up a little higher again, Lydia, and then begin to straighten the arms just into that point where you can still keep the grounding down through the feet. Your pubic bone is still pressing down and forward into the earth. The sternum is lifting up and forward into the sky, and you're feeling again this opening through the whole chest and strengthening through the back of the body. And then very gently coming all the way back down. Gorgeous. So sometimes there's a bit of confusion about upward facing dog and low cobra. So low cobra is the pose that we just did. Your thighs are on the ground, your pubic bone is on the ground, hands are on the ground, and you're lifting yourself up. So we're going to slide your hands back slightly towards your waist. Yeah, really good. Your feet are still pressing down. Again, trying to get those pinky toes pressing down into the earth as well. And then keeping the toes pressing down, we're going to press down through the hands. Press down through the hands, keep lifting, 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 gorgeous. And there you have upward facing dog. So you can see already here that Lydia's thighs are now lifted up off the ground. It's a deeper back bend, the chest is more open, and the pubic bone is lifted up off the ground. You still want the same action, pubic bone drawing forward and up, chest drawing forward and up, and that gorgeous openness across the front of the body, which Lydia can feel there. Beautiful, well done. Lowering all the way back down. That's gorgeous. And then you can just come up into tabletop, and we're going to come into a forward fold. So a lot of the time when we're forward folding, we see people kind of rounding the upper back. So you get this kind of look here. So the upper back is rounded and you don't have much access to go down as far as you want to. So in order to fold forward correctly, we can bring our two big toes together or have our feet hip distance apart, whatever feels comfortable for you. And just bring your hands onto your hips. So you've got two bony protrusions here at the front of your hips. We're going to keep our fingers on those bony protrusions and just gently find the center of your pelvis. So if you tip your pelvis forward, if you imagine your pelvis is like a bowl of water, the water will be spilling forward now. And then if you tip it back, the water will be spilling back now. So trying to find that center point, and the tailbone is lengthening down. You're finding the firmness through the feet, lifting up through the crown of the head. And then with your hands on your hips, take an inhale. And as you exhale, begin to hinge forward. You can feel the bony protrusions of your hips coming towards your thighs. And as you can see, if you just pause here for a moment, she's got this gorgeous flat back. It's not rounded at all. So she's hinging at the hips rather than coming from the upper back. And then you can continue to forward fold. Really beautiful. Again, if you have any issues with the back of the legs, the hamstrings, you can soften your knees slightly, so you can soften your knees there, and just bring the hands down to rest on either side of the feet. That is a beautiful, beautiful forward fold. And just as we were doing our back bends and you're opening the front of the body, when you're doing a forward fold, you're opening up the back of the body. So the back of the spine, and you're opening up the back of the legs as well. These poses, forward folds, if you're doing them standing or seated, are generally quite calming poses and soothing poses. And then as you inhale, Lydia, just reach your arms all the way up towards the sky, lengthening up, lifting up. And then bring your hands to heart center. So that's 5 of your most basic yoga poses that you're going to encounter each and every time you come into a yoga class. Thank you so much, Lydia. You've been an amazing assistant, and thank you very much for watching.